Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe's Classic Video Games, back with another cool pinball repair video for you this evening. What you think about that? We're about to get started on this one. This is a Chicago coin Gunsmoke pinball machine. We bought this well over a year ago off of a gentleman. He kept advertising it on Craigslist, and in the pictures of it on Craigslist, he had it sitting out in his yard. I don't know if he left it like that or not. There's some damage and stuff to the back glass from where it's weathered like that. Look at his face. That's not good. But it may have already been like that. Whenever we got it, this whole thing was, it had, you can kind of tell here, see the brown? So the whole cabinet was like that. It was a pretty dark brown, almost looked like a nicotine thing. And so we got some rubbing alcohol and some magic erasers and went to town on it and worked on it, and we got it back to where it's pretty much, you know, it still looks weathered, but it looks pretty presentable. And we were able to save the artwork on the sides and on the back box. The front, the artwork was just destroyed. So we did some work with some filler and just painted the front white. And then we painted the coin door, repainted the coin door and put it back. You can see on this side it's pretty decent too. So we kind of did that because we to put it back together and get it back up on its legs. And now that we have it like that, we're going to work through it and get the thing working. Ironically, the playfield was in pretty good shape. We haven't done a thing to the playfield yet, but it looks pretty good. It's not bad. It's going to clean up really nice and look great. It's got a little bit of wear here and there, but on these old ones, I kind of like it with a little bit of wear. It makes them look like they're the age that they are. It's got the little 2-inch flippers, and it's got a setup where you can't cradle the ball because it'll fall down this if you do. So all you can do is flip. But it has this ball saver in the middle. And it also has this Gunsmoke feature on the back box. The 50, 100, 200, 300, 500. And I believe this button is not the start button. I think that's the button for that. We'll see here in a little bit, but this video is going to be about us repairing the thing. You can see this plastic piece here is all crinkled up from where it was sitting out in the sun. So that's a shame because you can't get those. We're going to have to just make one out of paper. And strangely, the flipper buttons are missing. So who knows what that is? So I thought we'd just film a little overview of it before we get started. But we're going to start taking it apart and working through it. So if you've got a Chicago coin Electromechanical, watch this video and we'll show you how to get the thing working again. Now, I'm not going to plug this thing in because we sell them, right? So even if the thing works right now, I can't sell it like that because it might stop working tomorrow, you know. So I need to go through and clean every switch, look at every relay, clean the score reels, get everything right to where I know it's right, and then whenever I sell it, I can be confident that it's got the best possible chance of being reliable for the customer. Now if it screws up, maybe since I worked through the whole thing and messed with everything, maybe I'll be able to tell over the phone or something what's wrong with it. So, the life of a pinball repair place. Lately I've been playing with the Zoom a lot. Alright, so let's pop this sucker open and see what it looks like inside. Okay folks, so I pulled the playfield out so that we can get down to the switches and everything, and I vacuumed it out. It's very dusty in there, as you can see. And so basically all of these switches you have to get where they're opening and closing properly and that they're clean so that whenever they touch, electricity can pass through them. So this is the, I don't know, usually they call that like a relay bank. I don't know what they're called on Chicago coins, but This thing somebody has been messing with, so I found a bunch of hacked stuff. If you look on the bottom, I don't know if I can get a good shot of this, but we'll try it. You can see on that one relay, see all of that where the see that? They've like tied a bunch of wires together and things. That's not normal. And on the right, there's some weird stuff going on this one here. And then they've also, on this bottom switch on the game over relay, they've got the wire stripped, insulation off of it, and then they've just tied this one around it, right? A lot of these switches were bent out of place where they didn't touch properly whenever it resets, and that wire that's tied around it runs over here to this plug. Now this plug selects the 3-ball setup or the 5-ball setup, and they've got it badly soldered to one of the pins, and then it runs across and is soldered onto this relay. So this relay is the lock relay, right? So whenever you turn the game on, that locks in and holds in, which has been resoldered badly. This relay has been resoldered badly, and this relay, which is the tilt hold relay, is completely missing. If you look at the wiring, you can see they've unwrapped all the wiring. Usually this is tied up in a loom and it's all loose. So I get to fix what somebody else fixed. So what we're going to do is I'm going to find another coil that will mount in there. Luckily it's actually got it labeled. It says K28-1200. So 28 is the gauge of the wire, and 1200 is how many times it's wrapped around the spindle. So if you find something similar off another machine or that actual relay, or you can actually order those relays. If you go to most of the pinball places, they have just about all of them. But I think I've got some parts ones laying around that I can steal something. If you get something close, you're fine. Since that's a, I'll look it up, since that's a tilt relay. Yeah, we'll just stick with that. If I get something close, we'll put it in there. It's got to be the right sizes and everything too, of course. But what we're going to do is we're going to look in the schematics and we're going to see why did they put that wire, like what was supposed to be on this post. Because if it's not supposed to be like that, I'm taking it off. I don't like this kind of crap where I don't even know what it's doing or why. One way or the other, we're going to fix it, but there's no wire connected to that, so I don't know if, surely there was supposed to be something on there. So they may have just been replacing a wire that they pulled out or somebody messed up or something. So we'll look on the schematics and figure that out. I went ahead and cleaned the switches on the score motor, so whenever this turns, you know, it makes all of the pins go in and out, and I checked to make sure they were all opening and closing as they should. Basically, whenever you're messing with that, if you've got a switch, you don't even need the schematics if you think about it. So let's look at this top switch, if I can get it to focus. That might be a bad one. Let's look at this one over here. Alright, that top switch there, and you can see how filthy the bottom of the cabinet is. The only way to really get it much cleaner is to take all the stuff off the board. But that top switch, is it supposed to be open or is it supposed to be closed? The way you can tell is you just set it however it'll change. Here we'll do both of them. So we'll do this one and that one, right? You just set it so that it changes state. So like right now the top one's open and the bottom one's closed. And if you turn, now the bottom one's open and the top one's closed, right? And we'll get far enough and it'll go back. And so it's set up so that it's changing state. So like for instance, if I had it where right now it's the top one's open, well, then it's never closing. Well, why would they put a switch that never closes? You know, they need to close or open as they do their thing. Similar thing with, like, let's see, like this relay. See how that one's open and that one's open? Well, whenever you pull it in, they both close. So it must be right? If it's closed right now, if I had it bent where that's closed, and then you press it and it's still closed, well, you know it must not be right. They need to open and close, or close and open. And you can figure it out by just carefully looking at them. You don't even need the schematics or need to know how to read them. You just need to think about it logically. So you have to go through every switch like that. Now, if they're close, don't mess with it, because it's probably fine. Usually they're not all messed up. So sometimes people will go through one and they'll mess with every switch and get it just right, and then you go to start it and it's not working because you got something screwed up. So don't bend things if you don't have to. You know, just make sure that the thing's definitely wrong and it's way wrong before you mess with it. If it looks like it's just you know, it's working but maybe not as good as it should, just leave it alone. Just leave it how it is. You do need to clean them all though. So you can clean the contacts with like a little like a business card people use. You can just put a little like a slide a business card between the two contacts. If they're really dirty, what we use a lot of times is like an old flat file that's worn out. You don't want to use anything that's really aggressive or abrasive, because whenever you file those contacts, you'll just tear them all to pieces. So you need something that's just basically going to get the grit off of, the dirt off of it. And you'll see there's a lot of baked on dirt. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to look in the schematics. That wire from over there I don't think should be there, but I'm going to see what was on that post originally and see what it was connected to, and maybe we can even figure out what in the world they were doing. Okay folks, so I have pulled out my trusty schematics for this game. Sometimes you need them. Right now is one of those times. And I found the 3 or 5 ball adjustment jack, which is right there on the schematics. You got to look around for it a little bit, and there it is. So you can see that they have the square is the part that's in the cabinet, and then you can see the 2 little pins on the jack. So one of those wires, it says R-Y, so that's red and yellow, right? So that's this one. So that's the one that still looks like it's factory, running to the jack. That all looks fine, right? And then if you look down here at the bottom, see that wire? It's hard to tell what it is because it's so filthy. And then this wire, it's hard to tell what it is because it's so filthy. So what color would you guess? Here, I'll zoom in. What color would you guess those are? Let's get a good look at it. So what color would you say that is? Maybe red and yellow, right? So what color is this? Looks kind of like green and orange, right? So basically you can move this little jack from this side to this side, and if it's on this side, it's 5 balls. So on the 5 ball, one of them maybe is red and yellow, that the red and yellow connects to. Let's see if that's right. Whoop. So you see when it's on, when it's on 5 ball, the red and yellow would connect here, which should be red and white. What? That's white? So the plug in the bottom is white, and then on the other side it would be white and red if it was connected to the 3 thing. And then this other wire, our mystery wire, should connect either to blue and orange or black and orange, right? So we were looking at that one. They're saying that that wire is blue and orange. Now look at this. If I remove the jack, and then you see over here where the wires have been covered up all this time, I'll be damned if that wire is not blue and orange. See it curl around? It's hard to do this with one hand. See it? It actually is blue and orange. And that top one on this side is black and orange, and the bottom one here is white and red, and then the other one is red and white, just like it said. So the wire colors are actually all correct. So my point of that is, whenever you're trying to track down wires, you really got to be careful, because once they've gotten this old and filthy, you can't make it out. It's as bad as how blurry this camera is right now. So we're interested in the other one. So we don't want to mess with the one that's red and yellow. It looks like it's all hooked up. We're interested in the other jack, right? So if you look on the schematics here, so there's our red and yellow. So the other one is on that other one, right? And it runs up here and connects to a blue and orange, and a blue and orange, and also over here to the, so this says playfield vibration switch, score frame vibration switch, blue and orange, right? It also connects to this blue and orange that connects to one part of the lock relay. So it connects to a blue and orange wire on the lock relay, and then the other side connects over to the game over relay. Now if you look at that little symbol there, what that's telling you is that's a switch on the game over relay, and the A stands for the A switch on the game over relay, and the J stands for it's connected from the switch to the relay with a jumper. So it's switch A on the game over relay should be blue and orange and should connect to that pin, and then that pin should also connect to the lock relay, right? And if you look, I'll be damned if that isn't exactly what they did. They connected it over here poorly, but they did connect it. You can see what they did to the blue and orange wire on the lock relay, and then on the other side they connected it around, and that wire on the bottom of the game over relay that we were looking at, that they connected it to, is blue and orange. So they actually did it right. Now if you look right there, they connected it to the remnant of a wire. So I don't know if that wire burnt up, or for whatever reason they pulled that wire out and then replaced it with this crappy wire. But it is connected right. So they just did a really bad job of soldering it. So we're going to put a new wire in and make that connection better. But they did have it wired up right. We just need to make it where it's reliable and making good connections. So I'm going to mess with that. And I'm going to clean some more relays, and then we're going to see if we can find a coil for that relay. Alright folks, we've been working on some stuff. So I took that really ugly wire that was wrapped across the top off and soldered a new one on the connector. And this is the bank. I turned it unbolted it and turned it upside down. It ran over to a switch here. You can see the new wire to a switch on the bottom of that switch stack, and then it was we ran a wire back over all the way to the switch where it was supposed to be, instead of it jumping across. And got rid of the wires that had the cloth missing from them for whatever reason. And then once we turned this stack over, the relay stack, or what do they call this? What do they call that? Anyway, once we turned this all over, there was all kinds of bad stuff going on underneath it, where they had hacked it over the years, and a lot of wires just twisted together, and really bad solder jobs on stuff where there was solder on it but you could wiggle it and it wasn't making contact. So we took all that off, put new jumper wires, got the wires soldered where they're supposed to go, and got all that nice and solid. Redid the solder on this relay. We didn't replace that, that's from someone else. Redid the solder on this one, redid the solder on this one, of course soldered our wire on there, redid the solder on this one, and then I looked in a parts box that I had, and I actually had the exact correct coil, same part number and everything, in the back that we had taken off of a pinball machine years ago. So I don't even, it was off of a part, like we had a base of one or something, so we didn't part out any games or anything. But if we didn't have that, you can order them new, as you can tell from this one. This is actually a new coil, but we actually had one. We're able to get it mounted right, get the solder back on it and everything. So we're at a position now where we've got, I think, all the hacked wiring repaired. Now it may have some hacked stuff in the head, I'm not sure, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to clean all the relays. So I think we talked about it earlier, but basically what you need to do, let's see if I can get a good shot of this. Oh, and about cleanliness. If you look at the bottom of this machine, it's filthy, just dust all over it. We ran the vacuum over it, but can't really get all the dust out. Another thing that you have is you have these little pieces of paper that are stapled to the bottom, and if you run a vacuum on that, it rips the paper off. So you lose your labels of what each relay is and things like that. Since we're selling this at not a completely restored price, you know, I mean, we're not going to take all the time to make everything brand new. We're just getting it working again. We're not going to clean all of that up. We're going to clean up as much as we can reasonably, but the proper way to do it is to actually take all the wiring out, the whole piece. Will unscrew. You've got some screws here. This entire board will come out of the machine, and then you can slowly take each relay off, clean it. You can even take them all off and repaint the board or replace the board and then put it all back. You can even have you can print up new labels for it, but that's a heck of a job. I mean, it takes a ton of time. If you look online, you can see some people that have done that with their machines, and it looks great. It's awesome, but we just don't have the ability to invest that much time into it. And to be honest, cosmetics aren't our strong suit anyway. But what we're going to do now is we're going to clean some of that up, but it's not going to look perfect. And it doesn't affect functionality. So, you know, if there's dust in the bottom of the game still works. It just doesn't look nice. But looking at a relay, basically you can see the contacts on the switches. All of those need to be cleaned so that they conduct electricity. So you can see you've got all of your switches on this one, all the different types. So this one is this is a normally closed switch. So with the power off, the relay, you know, the bar is up, which is making this switch here connected. Whenever the relay pulls in, it opens that switch. And you can see when the contacts hit each other, it moves just slightly, which means that it's properly adjusted. Now this one is a normally open switch, so whenever the relay closes, it closes the switch, makes the contact. This one here is also a normally open switch. Same thing. And then this one here, you have a make-break switch, so it's normally connected to this outside one. And then whenever the relay pulls in, it breaks that connection and makes the connection under it. So you see what I'm saying? The blade is normally connected to this one. When it pulls in, that center blade moves over and is now connected to this one and no longer connected to that one. So that's just an example of what you have to do. You have to go through each relay and make sure they're all doing what they're supposed to do. So all the normally open ones need to close when the relay comes in. All the normally closed ones need to open when the relay comes in. And all of the three-way switches, or the two-way switches, the make and break switches, need to be made one way and then break and then make the other way whenever the relay pulls in. So I'm going to go through and check all of those and clean all of those contacts. You can clean them with a number of things. You don't want to use anything too aggressive, so you don't want to get like a big file or anything and go at it, because you'll mess up the points on the contact, or the contact on the switches. And once you do that, you'll have more trouble than you wanted. You can use just like a business card some people use. And what we use is we actually do use a file, but we use one that's basically worn out. It's almost basically just a flat piece of metal. So you put it in there and it kind of just, you're rubbing the dirt off of it basically. So you just want to, they don't have to be brand new or shiny. They just, shiny's fine, but if they just need to conduct electrically. And you can check that with like a multimeter or something. If you've done it enough, you can just kind of tell by looking at it. If they look really black, they're probably not going to conduct too well. If you clean it up to where you can see the original copper color, it's probably going to conduct. So we're going to go through and adjust. Another thing, don't adjust every switch. So if you mess with one of these, don't go through and adjust every single switch trying to get it perfect, because what will happen is you'll knock a bunch of them out of adjustment. It'll look like it's fine, but you'll create more problems than you solve. So All you really want to mess with is ones that are obviously screwed up. Like if they're way off and you know there's no way it's supposed to be like that, yeah, go ahead and adjust it. But if you're not sure and it looks right, just leave it alone. One thing about these machines is as they run, they kind of adjust themselves. Like the more you play them, they kind of get to a point where they're in a groove, kind of. I mean, I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. And they also, if they're properly adjusted, they clean themselves. So when the switches make, they move a little bit. And whenever they move, that rubbing action kind of keeps the contacts clean. So don't go through and adjust every switch, but we're going to go through, and if we find anything way out of adjustment, we're going to adjust it. We're going to clean every switch. Kind of have to do that, especially on one this filthy. And we're going to try to touch up, get some of that dust up. We're going to flip that back over and mount it how it's supposed to be mounted. And then we've got the score motor here. Tons of switches to clean on it as well. If you don't know how these work, as it spins around, these little cams have notches in them, which raises and lowers the these little riders on the cam, which makes and breaks all the switches as it goes around, and that's how they get action out of the logic. So we're going to do that, and then we've also got this stepper unit here that needs to be cleaned and adjusted, and we've got a smaller one back here that needs to be cleaned and adjusted. So we're going to get on some of that stuff, and we'll come back when we get a little farther along and let you know where we're at. Okay, folks, so we cleaned it up a little bit. It's not perfect, but it's a little bit cleaner. And I found one switch that was obviously misadjusted, so I figured I'd show it to you on tape just so you can see what it looks like whenever you find one. I believe it's this one. So here's how you check. So here's our switches. You can see how filthy the bottom still is. But so I'm pushing in the actuator, which is what happens when the coil energizes. It pulls that in, right? So look at this right switch, these three. See how it's touching the one on the left, and then when it goes in, it touches the one on the right? And see how both of this switch and this switch move? So whenever it hits this one, you see it push it a little bit, and when it hits this one, you see it push it a little bit. So that's how it should be when it's properly adjusted. Now look at this one on the left. It's the same type of switch, a make or break switch. You see what's going on? All of these are fine except for this outside one. So this one, if you look, whenever I barely touch it, see how I can move it without the middle one moving? It's because they're not quite touching. There's a little bit of space between it. So you just kind of bend it a little bit to make it a little closer. And see, it's still not moving. So we'll go a little more. You kind of have to bend it down. They make a little tool to do it with. I'm just doing it with my finger. You kind of have to do it down here. If you try to bend it up here, it'll never bend. All right. All right. So see, now see how the left one is moving now? And you can see air between it. It's opening all the way when it goes in, but it's touching it when it goes back out. So that's properly adjusted now. So you have to do that with every switch, all of them, every freaking one of them. That's on the special relay, so I don't know how big of a deal that would have been. It would have made something not work. So next, we're going to take this stepper unit off and mess with it a little bit. So whenever I get it tore apart, I'll film it again. Okay, so we worked on this little stepper unit. Kind of hard to see it. It says it's the ball count unit. These are Chicago coin games. I've only worked on a couple of them. So, do you see the red mark that's there and there? I didn't put that on there. Someone else has done that. What they're doing there is they're marking the reset position. So basically, when one of these coils goes in, it moves the spider. It's hard to show this because it's all inside the cabinet. When one of the coils pulls in, it moves this spider this way. It steps it up. It's a stepper unit. When the other coil pulls in, it resets it all the way back to the beginning. So in its reset position, which is, I believe, this one, that arm is against there. Now, why do you need to mark that? They mark it so that whenever you take this off, you can figure out how to put it back on. Because if you put it on in the wrong spot, it'll be turning around and hitting the wrong stuff at the wrong time. So the way it works is, you know, a couple of the arms are connected, or they're connected to ground, blah blah blah. So you're connecting different points on the stepper unit to itself. Now, you'll notice too on these, it's a little different than a lot of like the Bally's and stuff, because they'll have little rivets that it touches. This has more tracks that it rides on, which, you know, some of the Bally's and Williams have that too, but this one doesn't seem to have any rivets at all. It just goes around on tracks. So basically, you take this off, just unscrew that, and then slowly take the spider off, is what this is called, and check to make sure that you lay it down where you can tell exactly how to put it back on, how it is, whenever you're in the reset position. And then on the back, you have, it's different on each one, but you have one coil, that's the reset one, and then one coil here that when it pulls in, it moves the spider the other way. You can see this little tooth gear moving around. These little levers are pushing down on it, moving it, and then whenever you hit this one, it resets it because of this spring here that's wrapped around. So you need to remove this, it just pulls out. Now whenever you do, there's a spring wrapped around it, and so what I do is I unwind it until there's no tension on the spring, and I count how many times it unwound. So on this one it was 4 times. So once you put it all back together, you just wind it back 4 times and you get it back how it was. But we'll see on the front of it where the connections are, or the what would you call those? The contacts. Where the contacts are, you want them nice and shiny like that, or as shiny as you can get them. You don't have to go crazy with it, but you don't want a bunch of corrosion on it. So we cleaned it up a little bit, and then we put synthetic grease on it so that the little fingers can slide better. And so you'll see how whenever it's at home position, that one finger is touching that connection, and then when it steps up, each time the coil pulls in, it moves around to another connection. The last 2 are on the same one for whatever reason, and that's just how they've got it all figured out. Now whenever you hit the top one, it should reset it. So whenever that coil pulls in, it reset it back to the beginning. So you also want to make sure that if it's only been stepped up, so if it's been stepped all the way, you've got a lot of tension on that spring and it resets it back. But you also need to make sure that if it only steps up to like 1 and then you reset the game, that it has enough tension to spring back. So 1 on 2, it goes back. You know, you just want it where it'll always go back to the beginning. So we got that one done, and then there was another one back here. This is just a little tiny one. That it says something about 2/4 unit or something like that, and it was a lot simpler. Whenever you pull the thing in, these little contacts spin around. Same thing, put some synthetic grease on it, cleaned it up. On this one, it had some vinyl parts here in the back, which you have to put a little bit of grease on just so that where the vinyl touches the vinyl. You don't really want to put oil, you want to put like grease or something so that it where the vinyl touches the vinyl, it won't get stuck together. A lot of times whenever you're working on these all the old grease that's on everything is just all nasty and gunky. So you got to clean all that stuff off. Okay, so in the bottom we have cleaned and adjusted all the relays. We cleaned and adjusted the switches on this. We cleaned and adjusted the switches on that. We repaired the wiring that was all screwed up. We put the one coil in that was missing. We rebuilt this stepper unit. We rebuilt that stepper unit. So now we're almost at a point where we can work on the playfield. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take these Jones plugs and clean them up a little bit. You can see again these have been marked with paint. That's probably some operator did that whenever they were servicing it years ago. So all we're going to do is we're going to clean up some of this corrosion like that, or oxidation, I don't know what you would consider it. We're going to clean that up a little bit just so it's a little shinier, so it makes a little better connection, and put them back in. We've got those two to do, and we've also got, there's a little one right there. That is the connection for these two bells and the knocker. So we're going to clean those up and clean those up. And then once we get those, we can start messing with the playfield, which plugs in back here. I guess there's another one here. So we're going to clean those up a little bit. All we're basically going to do is use some light sandpaper to just clean the sides up a little bit, get them where they make a good connection. And once we get it like that, we can swap the playfield in. Alright folks, so we got those cleaned up. We popped the playfield back in it. We're going to work on the bottom of it first, as you can see. But look what I found when I was messing with the jacks on the side. So I was like, oh look, there's some more over here I need to clean. And so this top one is the 25-cent shoot adjustment. That's how many plays you get for a quarter. And then look at this one below it. Playfield action adjustment, normal or strong. Normal or stronger. Which one do we want that in, folks? So I put that sucker in stronger, and then I looked on the schematics, and look at this. Right down here by the transformer. Playfield action adjustment jack. So basically, this little plug goes in one or the other. Normal is this, and then the other one is strong. So that's going to be cool. So that adjusts the voltage that goes to the large bell, the knocker, the side hole kick out, the top hole kick out, the total play counter, the start relay, all of the coils basically. Pretty cool, pretty cool. And I would assume maybe the flippers. Let's see how far up it goes. Oh yeah, see look, this line goes all the way around the top, so it's also all these coils. Wait, am I right about that? No, these coils. I don't know folks, we'll try it out and see what it does. It says stronger playfield action, and I'm down with that. That sounds awesome. So whenever we get it going, that's something to look forward to, right? So next up, I'm going to work on the bottom of the playfield. But guess what? That's going to have to be next week, because this video is long enough. So next week we will finish up the playfield, and we will finish up the back box, and we'll see if we can get this thing ready to go. We've already got people begging to buy it. But before I allow them to buy it, I will film myself playing it, so you guys can see what Gunsmoke was like. So if you like the video, leave your comments below. Make sure to subscribe to us. Give us a thumbs up for taking the time to bring you along with us as we fix this sucker, or try to fix it. We ain't even plugged it in yet. Might have not fixed a damn thing, but I think we have. I think we have. But leave us a thumbs up. Leave your comments below. If you've ever played this, go ahead and spoil it for us, and let us know if it's any good considering its age. And if you know anything about that little jack we just found, let us know. But we will see you on the next video. Hope you enjoyed it.